we were able to scale the store from $0 to $600,000 a month in revenue within 6 months. So it was just some crazy explosive growth, and of course there were all the growing pains to go with that.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess before we get into more kind of how others, you think, like, if you know, how others right now like should go about starting their store, creating a brand, or selling an e-commerce product, can you tell us like what happened next? Because I know that you've started many other businesses. I think people would love to hear about those as well. So you haven't just done this one time, you've done multiple times.
Yeah, so the next company that I started is called The Fifth Watches. And I started that with a co-founder. We launched in 2014, December 2014, and we grew up our pre-list and pre-demand in a similar kind of way using Instagram and influencers. But we had around an 8,000 person waitlist when we launched the store. And in our first day of sales at The Fifth, we were able to achieve over $100,000 in sales. Wow. So, and that was in that day alone, basically. So we're like, okay, wow, this is clearly something that we need to be really focusing on.
Yes.
And so we kept growing that store, focusing on the same things, just focusing on the things that worked for us and the channels that worked for us, which was still mainly Instagram. And on our first birthday, we did over $1 million of sales in a single day. Wow. And that is also because that store has a limited sales model, which a time-limited sales model.
Yep.
Sales themselves weren't that limited.
Yep.
So basically what we'd do is we were called The Fifth, and we only sold on the 5th of each month for 5 days. And so we're exclusive by time rather than by price, which in a lot of fashion items are exclusive because they've got an expensive price tag. We were able to be exclusive by the fact that there was real scarcity involved because our watches would sell out every month and there was only 5 days to get them. And if you didn't sign up during the month to be notified of sales, then you'd probably miss out. So that was The Fifth, which was startup number 2. And then I started 2 more e-commerce stores, Drop Bottle and Skin Tox. Drop Bottle was an interesting one because it was actually, and this is a method that I'm sure we'll chat about later as well in more detail, but I am very much for growing a market or growing an audience before you launch a product.
Yep.
So launching that product to an engaged audience. And so with Drop Bottle, it was more of a case of we had a really large audience that we'd already built on Instagram through one of like my vertical or niche accounts called Detox Water.
Yep.
And it was basically just people putting fruit in their water to infuse the water and showing all different combinations and recipes. And it's just like a visually appealing subject. So it did really well on Instagram. I'd seen that it was really trending on Pinterest actually.
Yep.
And then I brought that trend sort of across onto Instagram because not that many people were posting on it, and curated all the content from Pinterest and then increasingly from Instagram for that account, and we were able to grow to like 900,000 followers within a few months basically.
Yeah, wow.
So we're like, wow, this like is a really like high momentum topic. Like this is definitely something that is trending in the market right now. How, from a brand perspective, what's a way that we could kind of capitalize on this, or what's a way that we could commercialize or monetize this audience. So then it's Detox Water. So we made a Detox Water drink bottle, which made sense. So like a fashionable and functional drink bottle with a fruit infuser. So then the people that were already quite interested in this topic, of course, were able to kind of buy into the community in another way. So that was an interesting one because we launched the market before we launched the product, and that was chosen in, I think it was 2016 by Oprah as one of her favorite things, which was really cool because we were front page of Amazon for a week as well, and we'd never done much on Amazon before. So that was like how to do Amazon 101 by being thrown in the deep end, which was a lot of fun. And she found us, or her team found us, through social media. So they were just following us on Instagram. And so they discovered us through there, and it's not like we sent in like our product to like be reviewed or anything. It was a big surprise when we got an email from Oprah's team being like, she's chosen you as one of her favorite things. I was like, I didn't know Oprah knew what we were.
That's so cool.
That's so cool.
So it's clear to say, like, you've had a lot of success. You're very, very good at what you do. You've done this multiple times. You've had, you know, these incredible brands that you've built. So I guess the first thing that people want to know is, like, what's the first place to get started? For people that are just watching this right now, like, how can they first get started? What's the first step?
The first step's coming up with your idea.
Yeah.
I'd say.
And like, how should people be going about that?
So the first thing to note is that you don't need to create some crazy new concept or idea. You can take an existing product that already exists and kind of reinvent that product or change it to make it better or different. So the way that I go about that usually is by changing just a single dimension of the product. So with the fifth, for example, that dimension was time. So we were able to change our entire direction of the company by just changing that one dimension that was time. So we were only selling on the 5th of each month for 5 days, and that made our company different. That became one of our like central unique value propositions. So things like time limited sales and introducing scarcity and factors like that into the product. One of the main things that you'll probably usually want to go about changing would be the function of a product. So with Drop Bottle, for example, we took just the average like glass drinking bottle and we added that extra function, which was the fruit infuser. So that was like a good way to go about that. So there's time, there's function, then there's design. With Drop Bottle, we added cool, like quite fashionable rose gold lids and other like trending kind of colorways, and we added like an easy handle so that it's a glass bottle, so that it's transportable as well. So we changed the design through that. And the last way that I go about generally changing a product would be price. So whether there's kind of 3 different ways that you can go with price. You can go for like lower than the average price. You can go for like industry standard pricing, which is in the middle, or you can go for like higher pricing, which might signal more exclusivity, like designer items. So you could create like a limited edition product that is more exclusive in that it's more expensive, and it might be a limited run of that as well. So they're kind of the 4 main things: function, design, time, and price. You want to simultaneously build an audience on social media and use that audience to get signups for, you know, maybe your pre-launch or your wait list for your product via email, so that then once you launch, you can do a big email push out to those. So social media is definitely, and Instagram specifically, is still one of the key places that I will go to when starting any new startup, any new company. Today still as well. Build a brand, not a store. So there is a huge difference in e-commerce. It's a fundamental difference, and that difference is between building an e-commerce store and building an e-commerce brand. And a store is just something that is there, you have a product on it, you make some sales, you get some money, and
drop shipping.
It tips. Yeah, exactly. Drop shipping would be an example of an e-commerce store. A brand, on the other hand, is something that you're building value into. You're building brand equity, and you're building up an asset that one day you'll be able to sell. So it's a scalable asset. So one definition that's just easy to understand of what brand is a brand is, if you took all your products out of your brand, what value would be left over at the end? And that is your brand. It's, you know, things like front of mind positioning that we spoke about. It's scaling brand equity through trust, through influencer relationships. It's consistency and creating a good product experience around your brand. So focusing on building a brand from day one.